Hi, I'm Ami Devereaux. You've probably heard me say this before, but almost every client I have who I coach is inundated in meetings and having an incredibly difficult time trying to find time to do the thoughtful, deep work that they need to do. And so, inevitably, one of the things I end up talking to them about is how to reduce the number of meetings. And it's really kind of incredible because when they go through their calendars and we actually do some kind of triage on the meetings, there are just so many that are either redundant or pointless or pro forma or in which they just don't need to be there because somebody else is having a meeting about something and they have nothing to contribute, and so on and so forth. And I'll bet if you have tons of meetings in your work, you'll find that a whole bunch of them fall into one of those categories. So, how do you deal with being in an organization? And remember, my clients are all high speed growth startups in which there's a lot of activity and there's a tremendous pressure to produce results. And so these meetings come up every time there's something to discuss, every time there's a project to review how it's going, to check on KPIs, to find out whether you're accomplishing metrics, etc. This kind of churning activity in which anything that needs to be resolved gets automatically scheduled into a meeting. And that's where the problem really starts, is with the kind of motivation behind creating meetings, which makes one take a step back and think, what is a good reason to have a meeting? Why should you have a meeting? And when should a meeting not be the solution to how to get something done? So let's talk about that for a second. Do you need to have a meeting for your sales team every week? This is kind of a traditional thing that sales managers do. And listen, I've run sales organizations and I've done it too. But if you really look at what gets done in most sales meetings, a lot of it is very unnecessary. The typical sales meeting, and this is true even if the CEO is involved or the VP of sales or the lead salesperson or whatever it is, it tends to be the same. We review the pipeline. We go around the, in this case, proverbial table because everybody's virtual, and we ask, what's in your pipeline and how is each individual prospect doing? Have you moved the needle? Are you moving them through the funnel? And so on and so forth. Now, let's take a step back from that because before that meeting even happens, the person in charge, let's say the chief revenue officer, goes to the CRM, exports that pipeline data, and literally has in front of herself the answer to all of these questions because every single person on the sales team has entered the progress of their prospect. They have put down the probability of closing. They have documented the problems that they're having, and they have suggested within the CRM what stage that individual prospect is in the pipeline. And yet, we still have a meeting to talk about every individual prospect. Why? Is that really the best way to support the sales team in producing results? Does it really help to take an hour and go through a pipeline that everybody can see at any moment to do? Maybe it's not. Maybe there's another way to accomplish the goal of that meeting because actually the goal of the meeting is quite straightforward, isn't it? It's to take a snapshot of how the pipeline is going and to determine whether anything has made progress or whether anything is blocked from making progress. Does that require the entire sales team to take an hour out of their day? And by the way, an hour meeting is never really an hour out of your day because there's preparation and there's context shifting. So any meeting like that is scheduled for an hour is probably more like an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes that is sort of extracted from your working day. There might be another way. And if you do this kind of triage for every single meeting, you may find that most of them are not necessary. Now, that doesn't mean that the results they aim to produce are not necessary, but it does mean that they're not requiring of a meeting. They could be done asynchronously through email or Slack. The pipeline could be sent out to everybody who's typically in the meeting, right? and everybody could review it. And then those people who are blocked, those people who have challenges, could easily submit those challenges to the person to whom they report. Or they could request support from a different department in the organization, like customer success or product or engineering. Or they could request a one-on-one with their manager. All of that stuff could be done by email, and yet we have a meeting. Why should we have a meeting? What is the right reason to have a meeting? Well, the right reason to have a meeting is because there's either a question that needs to be answered or a solution that needs to be developed. In other words, you could essentially sum every meeting into one thing, and that is a question. And the question may be, how do we resolve this block in the pipeline? Or the question may be, who should we hire to solve this problem? Or what is the next feature that our product needs to best satisfy our current customers? So every meeting could be summed up in a question. And if you were to, instead of crafting an agenda, which inevitably just leads to boredom and people checking out, if you've crafted the meeting as an inquiry into how we answer this question, first of all, your meetings would be much more fruitful. And second of all, you would discover that there are lots of meetings that don't require meetings. For example, is it really useful for a manager to have a 30 to 40-minute one-on-one with every direct report every week? Probably not. There's probably not enough progress in that individual's self-development on their course to throughout their career path or working on their individual projects or initiatives to fill up that one-on-one every week. Why not consolidate that into a team meeting and then have one-on-ones every 2 or every 3 weeks? That way, between sessions, there's time for people to make progress. There's time for them to work on something. That doesn't mean you eliminate all communication, but it means you reduce the meetings. I am on a crusade to reduce meetings. I am on a crusade to extend the amount of unscheduled time that high-level people have to think, to work, to create, to strategize. And I want you in your organization to join me in this crusade. Take this on. What meetings can you axe? Not just for you, but for your team, so that everybody is freed up to produce the value that they have truly been employed to produce. I'm Ami Devereaux. I hope you will subscribe to my channel. Also, you can get the newsletter that accompanies these videos. It's a bit more in depth and it comes out every other week by going to beyondbetter.io. And finally, if you'd like to join a community of people who are interested in subjects like this, please request to join my online community at beyondbetter.online. Thank you so much.